What's up guys, it's Andrew at EliteGamingHQ, and I'm back with a new video for you today. Today's video, we're going to be testing the GTX 1060, and we're going to be testing it in Anthem. No, I'm just kidding. Apex Legends. I actually got Anthem for free and still have not even turned it on. I've heard a lot of mixed things. If you guys played it, let me know in the comments below how you like it or how you hate it, just so I have something to go by. But anyway, yes, we're testing Apex Legends with the mighty GTX 1060. And I say mighty because this card was amazing a couple years back, and it's still great for 1080p gaming. When it comes down to budget 1080p gaming, I think this card and RX 580, they go blow for blow. But most games are optimized for GTX cards, so we're going to see how it goes. Before we get into the video, there's one thing I want to mention. On the channel, if you go over to the community section, I took the time to put in a little poll, as I do for fun, and Thursdays is Would You Rather. So check it out, vote, and funny comments get the heart. That's in the community section of the channel right there. It's something they added in new a little while back, and I figured let's not just let it go. Let's take advantage of it. It seems like it could be fun. But anyway, for the testing today, we're going to be using my system, which I'll put the specs here, which is a Ryzen 7 2700X, 16 gigs of DDR4, and it's installed into an SSD, along with the fact that we're using the GTX 1060, of course. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to test the game first, and then I'm going to record some gameplay. So the gameplay you do see will not be the recorded testing footage, or testing numbers rather. But the thing is, the recording takes a little more off the CPU and does this and that, but it's going to be pretty similar. I didn't want to put anything in the way of the CPU or anything as we're doing the actual FPS count, and I wanted to give you something to see. And before I elected to take away the lows in this game, because this game does have some hitches, but you will be able to see that there's no real stutters in the game when you're in combat and stuff like that, and that's why I put the actual gameplay footage in, and then we're going to be able to match it with our average and high FPS. So it'll all make sense in just a second, and let's go into our GTX 1060 1080p low, and we'll see what we get. Alright, so when we take a look at 1080p and everything all the way to low, as you can see, we barely use any CPU, which means that this game is very GPU heavy, and our GPU sits at 98%. It's trying to produce as many frames as possible, and obviously it's the bottleneck in this situation because the CPU and the RAM is just enough and plenty to run this game. Well, we end up getting an average of 126.891 FPS and a max of 144, which is the game's limiting factor. Now, someone suggested in a different comment that I should maybe go into the files and change it so we can get higher than 144, and my answer to that is I could do that, but we don't know if the game's optimized to run higher, so therefore you could see bigger spikes. It could cause other problems as far as what our analytics are, so I'd rather keep it close to stock the way they designed it for. And then the other thing is, going above 144 is only going to cater to a very small percentage of people who have a 240 Hz monitor, and I just don't really feel like we need to do that. So there's my reasoning if you guys were wondering. Next, let's go up to a medium-ish settings, and I'll put the settings on the screen here, and we get an average of 106 and once again a max of 144. So really we lost 20 average FPS, but we're still well over 100, and the game's running pretty buttery smooth. I think the lows I had, it dipped all the way down to 98, but it was not jarring and it's nothing that I really noticed. The thing about 1080p is this is going to be the hardest setting that's going to be on your CPU, so even if you don't have a CPU that is as strong as mine, maybe you have an i5 6-core, it's still going to run smooth in 1440p or even in 1080p because the game's utilizing 100% basically GPU. But now let's move over to 1080p max, and this is basically everything toggled up. Oh, I didn't mention before, we are using the 3GB model of the GTX 1060. If you choose to use the 6GB model, you're going to get a small increase in FPS. It's not very relevant, but you will be able to have some extra textures. So when I turn it up to high, I'm turning it to 2 to 3 or 3GB of video RAM. In this game, I always say use a little less than your actual video card has of physical memory, because this game doesn't run as optimized when you actually put it balls to the wall and max it out. But everything else we have high, and we got an average of 84.987 and a max of 127. So once again, if you're running a 1080p 60Hz monitor, which most people are nowadays, this game's going to run great at 60 FPS with the GTX 1060 because it's just just a great card. I really don't see why a lot of people think they need an i7 and a GTX 1080 or an RTX 2060 for 1080p gaming. It just doesn't make any sense. This game is not even optimized well, and it's running great with this system. So even if you're running like a new i3 with the GTX 1060, you're going to do really well. But let's move up to 1440p. 1440p, everything on low. We got an average of 97 FPS and a max of 112. So looking back to 1080p low, when we moved up to 1440p, we lost an average of 30 FPS on the average. Average? I don't think that sounds right, but anyway, we lost 30 FPS average when we moved up to 1440p. Now let's toggle some settings and get our medium-ish, and in medium we went to average of 76, also still very playable and very smooth, and our max was 102. Now this is one of the 3 or 4 cards on this list that I did not test in 4K, and the reason being, as you'll see, when we move up to the max in 1440p, we get below 60 FPS, just by a little. So I'll show here the settings we use for max, and once again, you don't really want to play with all these lighting enhancements and everything else. Some of them actually affect your gameplay negatively because they'll put sun glare in your eyes as the enemy goes to shoot you and kill you. So it just doesn't make any sense, but we're doing it for testing purposes. But just know that since we got an average of 59.3 and a max of 83, if you just turn the annoying lighting effects off and lock the game at 60, you will be able to play at 1440p 60 without a single problem. Especially if you lock the game at 60, because your system will not be trying hard to get above 60, so when you do hit a point where it's like, oh, we're going to lose that 0.7 FPS, it just won't be there. And another good point I like to say is a lot of people just run their GPU balls to the wall, even if they don't have a monitor to support it, and kind of doesn't make sense in some aspects, because it's the equivalent of you getting in your car, putting it in neutral, or putting it in first gear, and just revving it all the way to the floor. Granted, the car and the GPU are made to do such things, and it will last a while. You are putting unneeded stress on your GPU, and if you care about longevity so that maybe you can flip it later on eBay or something like that for your upgrade, I would suggest probably locking your FPS to your monitor. Now there's an argument to be had that some people don't like VSync, this and that. You can use outside programs, there's other ways to do it, but that's a topic for another video. It's just my personal opinion. Running everything max all the time could have negative effects on the longevity of your PC, and graphics cards are one of those things that will commonly go on you. I mean, in my experience, the only thing that usually ever fails is a power supply, a graphics card, or a motherboard. Never the CPU. Sometimes RAM will come dead on arrival. It fails, but not as often. Or running a CPU balls to the wall or buying a secondhand mining CPU is a sure way probably to get a brick. Like I said, if you like the content, be sure to subscribe. Go over there and vote, because it can be funny and fun. I'll catch you guys in the next one. My name is Andrew. This is Elite Gaming HQ. Thanks for watching, guys.